I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel stands up in solidarity with Egypt. Tens of thousands of protesters rally for a two-state solution, and we'll reveal how several child survivors of the Holocaust are remembering the parents that they lost. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. It's a familiar sight in Tel Aviv. After a major terrorist attack, the city hall has been lit up once again with the flag of the targeted country. But for the first time ever, Israel is showing solidarity with an Arab nation, and it's Egypt. On Friday morning, 29 Coptic Christians were killed in Egypt when an Islamic State gunman opened fire on their bus. The attack, coming on the eve of Ramadan, was the latest in a series of bombings, killings, and other persecutions that have targeted the minority Christian community. In April, 2 churches were targeted by suicide bombers on Palm Sunday, and in December, a Cairo church was the site of another suicide bombing. In total, more than 100 Copts have been killed by Islamist violence since December. The Copts are the largest and one of the oldest Christian communities in the Middle East. They still use a ritualistic version of the Egyptian language, but it's been largely superseded by Arabic. Tel Aviv's central Rabin Square was absolutely packed last night with up to 20,000 people, and they weren't only protesting against the Netanyahu government, but were also calling for a Palestinian state.
We are here to protest 50 years of Israeli occupation. While the Israeli government is trying to silence us, we're here to prove that we will not be silenced. When the government is celebrating 50 years to the reunification of Jerusalem and the liberation of the territories, we know that this is a lie. We are here to show that there's a majority among the public who supports a two-state solution and is willing to fight against the occupation.
Speakers at the Two States One Hope rally included a host of left-wing politicians, and they had scathing criticisms of Prime Minister Netanyahu's right-wing government. Joint Arab List leader Ayman Odeh says that the increasingly radical government uses minorities as a punching bag. Meretz leader Gadot is accusing Netanyahu of playing the victim and fleeing from responsibility when it comes to solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And Isaac Herzog, the leader of the Israeli opposition, is calling on the centrist Yesh Atid and the center-right Kulanu party to join him in a big political bloc.
This is a very important rally of the peace camp in Israel. We believe that there is a golden opportunity following President Trump's visit to the region to move forward towards a two-state solution in security and in peace. And this is what we are gathered here for tonight. The hope is for two states.
Herzog, who is facing primary challenges from his left, was reportedly booed by some of the crowd. He says a historic opportunity for regional talks to create a regional coalition was recently derailed, and it was all because of Netanyahu's political insecurities. The protest comes on the heels of Jerusalem Day, when Israelis celebrate the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967. The hunger strike by Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails is over, with both sides claiming victory. So let's take a closer look to see just what the 40-day protest achieved. The prisoners' relatives and their supporters claim more than 1,100 Palestinian prisoners held out till the very end, while Israeli authorities say the number is closer to 800. During celebrations over the end of the strike, Palestinian Authority leaders claim that Israel finally gave in to the prisoners' demands for better conditions.
وبعد مفاوضات زادت عن 20 ساعة تم التوصل إلى اتفاق مع إدارة السجون حول المطالب الإنسانية العادلة المطروحة من قبل الأسرى، وبناء على هذا الاتفاق الذي ستعلن تفاصيله في وقت لاحق تم تعليق الإضراب، وأن اللجنة الوطنية لمساندة الإضراب تعلن اليوم انتصار الأسرى والشعب الفلسطيني.
But the Israeli authorities say they never once negotiated with the prisoners and didn't concede to a single demand. Israel has continued to insist that the strike declared by convicted terrorist Marwan Barghouti was all an internal political power play against PA President Mahmoud Abbas. In fact, the only talks that took place to end the strike were between the Red Cross and the PA, and the only prisoner demand that is being met is for the reinstatement of 2 instead of 1 family visits a month. The Red Cross, which supervises the meetings, previously had to cancel that allowance due to budgetary restrictions and a lack of family interest. Barghouti agreed to cancel the strike after the PA agreed to pay $6 million a year to cover the cost of the additional visits. Israel has always maintained its prison conditions meet international standards. Authorities have reportedly agreed to consider other issues with the prisoners later, as long as they're not being threatened by a hunger strike. Those demands, by the way, included 20 TV channels, public telephone use, unrestricted books and magazines, air conditioning, and that the prison shop be better stocked. Joining us now is Knesset member Dr. Anut Belko from the Likud party, who's also an expert in counterterrorism. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure, Natasha.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about one of the major events that was taking place in Israel over the course of the last month, the 40-day Palestinian hunger strike. It's just ended, and Israel says that they made no concessions, but we're seeing different reports coming from the Palestinians and the Israelis. Why is that?
Because the Palestinians want to show that they win, but they didn't. You know, if we'll speak about the demands that those terrorists who are incarcerated in the Israeli jail, it was for air condition, more 10 channels on TV, and things that are ridiculous. Do you think that in Guantanamo terrorists have such a conditions that we see like that here in Israel? I have my experience, you know, a lot of my research was in the Israeli jail with sitting with terrorists, first-hand research, face-to-face with them, and they got the best food, and they can buy more things that in the canteen that even soldiers don't have such a variety of products to buy in their units. So
the question is, why did this end now, though?
The best healthcare. Many people that need healthcare, that for example, in the U.S. they pay for that such amount of money, so much money. Here they get it for free.
Now the question is, why did this hunger strike end? We're hearing different reports about it. Israel still says that they didn't give any concessions.
Because the Ramadan is right now, and they celebrate Ramadan, and it's a time to say Ramadan Kareem, but they want to celebrate Ramadan. And the other thing that Barghouti, who actually led this hunger strike of the terrorists, he's not a candidate to Abu Mazen. He would like to take his place, but Abu Mazen didn't support him. And also, President Trump, when he was in the visit in Israel, didn't even speak in one word about those terrorists who are striking. So
now let's talk a little bit about the two-state solution. We just saw a huge protest here in Tel Aviv over the course of the weekend, held by the Israeli left. Now the big question here is, why is it so difficult for Israel to put together a joint coalition that combines both left and right forces?
Because the left forgot that we need security, and we cannot put in the hands of Abu Mazen or Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas the security of our children. We withdrew from Gaza until the last inch. What we got? Missiles, targeting kindergartens, targeting civilians. The same thing will be with the West Bank. You know, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also me, I support this solution, two-state solution, but Natasha, be precise, for 2 people. And the Palestinians do not want to say and to admit that it's one state for Palestinians, but the other state for the Jewish people. They want two-state solution, actually 3-state solution just for Palestinians. They want the Islamic Emirate in Gaza Strip for Palestinians, Hamas ruling there. They want the West Bank for them, and they want the whole Israel that will be a state for all their citizens, and also after that an Arab state.
But are we going to be able to see any type of peace deal made if we're not seeing, you know, our leaders on the left and the right come together and make concessions to one another?
It's not between the left or the right. It's between the other side that need to give hands and to say, I would like to have peace. I see Abu Mazen, and I don't know if he has the ability to do so. If Israel will take all the security like right now we do, and there will be Palestinian state, but we will govern, we will take the security issues and in consideration, it could be. But Abu Mazen speaking about the claim of return of Palestinian, which means that it's calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. When you see millions of refugees in the Middle East, and they still speaking about, after 70 years, about Palestinian refugees. It's ridiculous.
Now we're seeing the UN come out and say that there's going to be a major there is a major humanitarian crisis in Gaza, but it's about to explode, and it could implicate Israel as a result of the political disagreement on the ground that we're seeing between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority over electricity and electricity taxes. Now, how should Israel be involved in this issue, if at all?
First of all, Hamas should ask themselves if they want to invest money in the tunnel or in weapon to target Israel and to just build their military forces, or to take care of their community, of their own people. We cannot give them electricity and money and actually 1,000 trucks a day we give them as a humanitarian aid, but they use all those stuff against Israel and not for their military forces.
So but the question is, should Israel be intervening in any way to help this issue, or to ensure that the Palestinian Authority does continue to pay Israeli electricity bills for Hamas?
Actually, by saying that we wouldn't pay that, we wouldn't cover that, and the Hamas should, and the people in Gaza should ask Hamas, instead of putting the electricity in creating a weapon and tunnels, please give us the conditions to have dignity and, life that can respect us.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in, Knesset member Anut Belko.
Thank you, Natasha.
It looks like the Gaza Strip is in some major trouble. The United Nations Middle East envoy is warning the Security Council that a power struggle between the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas leaders of the Strip is not only worsening the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, but may lead to an even wider conflict involving Israel. The envoy, Nikolai Mladenov, made the statements to the 15-member council on Friday.
In Gaza, we're walking into another crisis with our eyes wide open. I am today warning the Security Council that unless urgent measures are taken to de-escalate, the crisis risks spiraling out of control with devastating consequences for Palestinians and Israelis alike.
He explained to the council that the dispute between the PA and Hamas over fuel taxes has caused Gaza's sole power plant to shut down, and it's responsible for supplying a third of electricity to the region. The PA has also slashed the salaries of nearly 60,000 public sector employees as part of its pressure on Hamas to return governance of the Strip to Ramallah. Mladenov is also warning that there will be even greater hardship if the PA follows through on its threat to stop paying the Israeli electricity bills for the enclave's Hamas terrorist rulers.
Meanwhile, the Palestinian government has decided to cap its purchase of electricity from Israel for Gaza. If implemented, this decision would further reduce electricity supply to Gaza by some 30%, plunging its population into a spiral of humanitarian catastrophe.
The envoy says the power cuts are putting the region on the verge of a major environmental disaster.
As we speak, 100,000 cubic meters of raw sewage are discharged into the Mediterranean Sea on a daily basis. This is the equivalent of 40 Olympic-sized swimming pools of sewage, untreated, daily. An environmental disaster for Israel, for Egypt, and Gaza is in the making.
The Palestinian Authority is in big trouble with Norway following its decision to use Norwegian funds to construct a building with a very controversial name. The Palestinian Authority might have gone too far, and Norway is not happy. After the PA named a women's center in the West Bank after the perpetrator of a terrorist attack that killed 38 people, including 13 children, the Norwegian foreign minister put out a harsh statement. And no wonder. Norway's been footing the bill for some of the project. Foreign Minister Borge Brende says that Norway didn't know the center would be named after one of the attackers in the 1978 Coastal Road massacre. He's calling for the Palestinians to return the funds that the Scandinavian country provided them and to take Norway's logo off of the building. A local village leader says that the center will focus especially on the struggle of martyr Dalal Mughrabi and on presenting it to youth groups. That's according to the Palestinian Media Watch NGO. But it turns out this is far from the first thing that the PA has named after Mughrabi and the other terrorists of the Coastal Road massacre. Mughrabi has a youth camp named after her, several streets, and even a girls' basketball tournament. ILT viewers may remember our report last August about a pilot program for Israeli police to wear body cameras. Well, the initiative's been an outstanding success, and now the entire force is about to be outfitted with the recording devices in the near future. It seems that both law enforcement and private individuals behave better when they know they're being recorded. The Israeli public and the officers are describing the 5-month trial that ended in January as a game changer. Hopes that the body-worn video, or BWV, would help to reduce police violence and citizen complaints actually came true. Israeli authorities say there's now increased public trust and a restoration of faith in national policing. So by mid-2018, we'll be seeing all Israeli officers equipped with BWV. The cameras have been shown to not only encourage greater accountability by law enforcement, but they also provide an official record of disputes. Until now, videos of officers on duty uploaded to social media by private citizens have sometimes created backlash and left police unable to prove their own perspectives. The new video records are also expected to appear in court as evidence of illegal activity that can facilitate far more effective prosecution of criminals. Knowledge is probably the most valuable tool in the fight against a difficult disease like cancer, from learning about the newest treatments to hearing about the experience of the ill. But here's the thing, it can often be very hard for patients and their families to access such basic information. Now, one Israeli startup called Belong has created an app to combat this issue, and joining me to tell us more is the founder and CEO of the company, Eliran Malki. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, so tell us a little bit about how Belong works and how the app actually helps cancer patients and their families.
Okay, so Belong is a cancer journey navigation app. It's helping patients to understand what's their treatment, what is the situation they are in, what is the option they have, to consult with experts from around the world and from patients like them that was in the same step, to consult with their physician in the hospital and everything they need to understand what's the best next steps, just from one app from the living room.
And it's funny because people don't understand the importance of an app like this, because we're flooded with so much information on a daily basis, but yeah. I guess you kind of really help patients find the most effective treatment, right? How do you kind of tailor to the specific needs of each person who's using this app?
So the goal of Belong is actually to tailor every information the patient see in the app to his situation, to the phase he is in the disease, and to actually the treatment is. So we start in the diagnostic phase. We learn from the thousands of patients. We have almost 25,000 patients already in Belong today, quite a lot, from 88 countries, by the way.
That's
Israel
amazing.
and US are the most, of course.
So I'm assuming this app is in many different languages.
Yeah, we can support many languages. The mass are in Hebrew or in English, of course, for the US. And they can, every step they can understand what is the options for them. According to the protocol, according to the different physician, they can actually ask for free. Physician from Mount Sinai, Dana-Farber, or the top physician from Israel. And I'm assuming
those physicians are also ranked, the quality of the physicians.
Yes, so the best of the field.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how did you come up with this idea?
I'm working with the same team for a few years, and I lost my grandfather to cancer and my mother's sister. And at that point, my mother brother was sick. My CTO lost his mother to cancer a year before, and the VP R&D lost his father to cancer. And we had a dinner, and we all talked about a lot of things. And then we find out that we all made mistakes. Although we could have a lot of, we had a lot of friends, we had enough funds to pay for the best physician, we made mistakes. You know, small mistakes that if you have a metastatic cancer and you take orange juice in the morning, or you take vitamin C, it's very bad for you because it's actually helping the metastatic to grow faster in some cases, or bad with a specific chemo you take. Or if you do a biopsy and you didn't ask for taking enough materials, you cannot make a genetic test, and you lose a lot of options later. Or a clinical trial.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of, one of the biggest issues that families have when they're facing diseases like this is that you always feel like you missed something or you could have gotten something right,
yes.
But the information just wasn't there. So this is kind of collecting everything and putting it together.
And put it in the right place, in the right time. It's very important. Just in CNN, I think 2 years ago, they say 30%, a third of the US patient doesn't get the effective cancer treatment. That's a big number. I
mean, it's absolutely crazy. And again, it comes down to that very fundamental and basic issue of just lack of knowledge. And I mean, I think that this is something that not only helps the patient, but probably the families as well who are dealing with this and don't want to feel like they've made the wrong move anyway, any step along the way. Now, what can we expect next for your company? You say you have 25,000 people on the platform. Are you expanding? Yeah, we're expanding now in the US. Next week I will be in the biggest oncology conference in the US. We're adding more physicians from the top hospitals. We will add more hospitals. In Israel we have 3 hospitals, in Canada 1. We are now adding more hospitals to work with their patients to bring better quality of life, hopefully better survival, of course. And more important, optimized treatment. Optimized treatment is less side effects, less infections, less money in some cases. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It seems like you really created a platform that's going to help a lot of people. And I hope that this actually goes beyond just cancer specifically, but an array of other diseases as well. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now here's a touching story. A group of Jewish children who survived the Holocaust have just dedicated a new monument to the parents that they were torn away from and never had the chance to see again. ILTV's Max Keisler has the scoop.
The poignant statue is being placed at the main train station in Prague. It depicts the children's hands pressed to the closed doors of a carriage, with their mothers and fathers on the other side. Almost all of the families who remained behind were murdered in Nazi death camps during the Second World War. The children were saved from certain death by one man. At the onset of war in 1939, 29-year-old London stockbroker Sir Nicholas Winston managed to get 669 Jewish children from Czechoslovakia aboard 8 trains. After being transported through Germany to the Netherlands, the children were ferried across the North Sea to Britain. Winston also persuaded the British government to grant the children entrance and provided each one of them with a foster home until the war's end. At the time of his death in 2015, at age 106, Winston was mourned across the world in tribute for his heroic actions. The Prague children were among 10,000 others who managed to reach Britain on rare missions known as the Kindertransport. The majority were never reunited with their parents, who perished in the Holocaust.
Here in Israel, everybody has been waiting anxiously for the release of the latest Wonder Woman movie, since it's featuring none other than the beautiful Israeli star Gal Gadot. Unfortunately, though, the world release was disrupted by the May 22nd terror attack in Britain. The European premiere in London was cancelled following the suicide bombing at the Manchester Arena, which killed 22 people. The world premiere in Hollywood went ahead as scheduled on Thursday, however, under reinforced security, including bomb-sniffing dogs.
I feel awful. I feel very sad. It's like it's the extremes of life, right? I experienced the most amazing thing. I've been working on this movie for so long, and finally it's out. It's about to come out, and on the other hand, there's terror attacks and suicide bombers and the worst, most horrible extremes. You know, for me, coming from Israel, I'm familiar, unfortunately, with these type of events. And I think that it was a good idea not to do the premiere in London. As an Israeli, I can tell you that we always say that, you know, we need to celebrate life, and life is stronger than anything. And now we're trying to celebrate life, right? So it's mixed feelings, but it's, you gotta, show must go on, I guess.
The action film featuring Gadot as the superhero also stars Robin Wright, Connie Nielsen, and Lucy Davis. Our American viewers will be able to see it when it hits U.S. theaters on June 2nd.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Logic will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. So today's word is dimion, which means imagination in Hebrew. Knowledge is important, but it can be limiting. Dimion, on the other hand, allows you to explore alternate realities. That's why life can be so interesting inside of your head. But remember, as outlandish as some of your thoughts may seem, it's always important to share your dimion because your creativity could make a big impact. After all, dimion means nothing without doing. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight we'll have clear skies with a low of 67 or 19 degrees Celsius, and tomorrow is expected to also be clear with a significant rise in temperatures and a high of 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.